Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosa Bianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, today we're going to discuss the 4 most feared words of any small business owner. I'm calling in sick. And we're going to teach small business owners how to prevent that ever happening again. And on the podcast, we have, hailing from Bronx, New York, vis-a-vis California, vis-a-vis Nashville, and now in the Liquid Lunch Project, Jim Padilla, owner, founder, and maestro of Gain the Edge. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Really excited for the time together.
Oh, the pleasure's all ours. So tell the audience, what is Gain the Edge?
Gain the Edge is a solution provider for done-for-you sales teams in the service-based industry. So if you're a service provider scaling your company, thinking about hiring sales team, you want to talk to us first, because most people are missing the key components to put in front of a sales team that make them great. Most people just grab a salesperson, throw them in, expecting them to wave a magic wand over your business and make it better, and that doesn't happen.
So how did you come up with this brainchild, this outsourced sales team concept?
Well, like all great ideas, you stumble into them on accident. I was in sales training. I was doing sales coaching and had somebody, an emerging rock star about 8 years ago in the coaching industry named Bill Barron, who was about to do his first $1 million launch. And instead of coming in to train his team, he asked if we could just be the sales team, do the sales. And I said, like a good entrepreneur, said yes, had no idea what a launch was, no idea what we're doing. So went out and bought Jeff Walker's book, Launch, read it that weekend, went out and recruited a dozen salespeople from my clients and friends and said, hey, let's make some money in the next few weeks delivering this launch, selling some stuff. And 3 weeks later, we had a $1.6 million wildly successful train wreck of a launch because nobody knew what they were doing, but it was awesome. And, a week later, there was a line at the door. We spent the next 2 years doing nothing but launches and events. And then, generated about $50 million worth of sales there. And then people started wanting us to stick around between launches and events and become their full-time sales team. So then we started building all the systems, process, and structure strategies to make all that go. And, now 8 years later, we're the most loved and well-respected sales experts in the game. And it's been a wild ride.
I love this concept because when I grew my brokerage firm, everybody was a salesman at the end of the day, right? We grew it from 5 to 80 reps. And it was a goddamn nightmare, man. You couldn't get your own work done. You had to manage the sales force. You was their psychologist. You were their daddy. You were their bank at the end of the day. I would gladly give a portion away for somebody to come in and run that, right? So what type of service industries do you normally work with?
Yeah, we work with, we started out working primarily with coaches and consultants, solution providers, selling soft skills. We don't typically sell hard products, but we have morphed and expanded in recent years, and we work with pretty much anybody in the professional services range. We work with accountants, we work with real estate fix and flippers. We work with multifamily syndication investors that are doing capital raises to acquire apartment complexes. We got attorney firms that are selling corporate veil protection, and we work with where we've been working with several different print shops that are selling, that are doing, brochures and calendars and all that stuff. And most of the time, at the end of the day, sales is sales, and it's helping people really understand that, what they need to be doing is serving their people with some intentionality and a strategy, as opposed to just mostly reacting, which is what unfortunately most people are doing. We find most entrepreneurs are really good at their business, just not really good at getting business.
Jim, Matt and I are drinking the Kool-Aid. We're drinking on the rocks. We're drinking it mixed. We love what you're doing. But help us battle the naysayers that say, well, I want to train my team. I want them to have instilled in them my corporate culture. I want them wearing my polo shirts. Give us the counter argument to that theory and what the edge is for Gain the Edge.
Yeah. Literally 100% of the people that I talk to have that very concern. How can you, some outside, come in and really represent my brand and my culture to my clients? Most people, it's hard to connect those dots mentally if you haven't seen it before. And that's very reasonable to come to that conclusion. The difference is, like, our core differentiator is when we started this, there was no competition. We were it. Now there's a lot of people doing what we do, sort of. And the main thing that they do is they come in with a team of closers, and they sit at the end of your funnel waiting to sell your stuff. What we do is we step in as your sales division. We step into your brand. We absorb your brand and your content and your client customer journey, everything. We assimilate your brand really well. And then we deliver a seamless branded experience to your clients that leads to sales. And our objective is to be able to make sales over time, because the thing that most people don't know, but you guys do, is 90% of the sales that you're ever going to make are not coming in the first 30 days. They're coming over time. So we set up a structure that allows your people to want to be in your world over time, instead of us shoving your product down their throat. And then if they don't buy, they leave and they never see you again. So we build an experience, we build in systems and pipeline processes that allow us to really work and build relationships with your clients over time and being an extension of you. We want them to feel like they're talking to you when they're talking to our teams. And we want to make sure that that an average salesperson can consistently and predictably sell your product. If it requires the founder to make the sale or a rock star salesperson to make the sale, quite honestly, it's because your offer is probably not good enough. It's not clear, it's not clean, it's not compelling, and we fix all of that.
So, Jim, when a small business starts out, it's usually the founder operator that's rocking and rolling, right?
Right.
Do you come in at that stage when the guy just says, look, I can't mop the floors, change the liners, and flush the toilets all in one day? Or do you need that business to have systems and processes in place, and maybe they have 5 to 10 salesmen, and then you help take them to the next level? At what point do you find it ideal to have Gain the Edge integrated into an existing business?
Yeah, thanks for that question. For somebody to get the greatest value from us, their true problem needs to be that we're solving is that they no longer want to be the salesperson or running the sales team. Like, the highest and best use of their time is not to be overseeing the sales division. Nobody that I know, I have yet to meet a single entrepreneur who got into business for the purpose of selling their product. You got into business because you want to serve your clients. You want to build your movement. You want to build an empire. There's something you want to do, but it's not to chase leads and make sales.
Let me get an amen.
Absolutely. And so we want to eliminate that. And when you're in the early stages, most people don't have the systems and processes, which is why we now bring that in. So we have two classes of client. We have one that's the 7, 8, 9 figure client that's scaling towards something, usually scaling to an exit. You're building a SaaS platform. They're doing something over on the other side of the business that requires them to really get great, robust outcome out of this side of the business that we help them with. Then we have another client who is the 6K or 6 figures to $500,000 that wants to scale to 7. They just don't. They've got a bit of a proof of concept. They know they can sell something, but they have no real systems and structure around it. And so we have a mastermind that helps them put those systems and structures in place so that they can now actually be sales team ready and hire a salesperson or a company like ours.
So essentially you show them how to put the systems and processes in place so your team can come and take over and close the sale at the end of the day. Okay. Yeah. So I'm interested, right? You definitely got me going, because I've never even thought of having an outsourced sales team before, but it's definitely right. You piqued my interest, right? So how does somebody engage you? How does your firm get paid? Because I know everybody listening right now is going to want to know this as well.
Typically, usually our initial engagement with people is some sort of an event, a launch, a 2-day, 3-day conference, something where we can get a robust payday and then start building from there. So it's usually the easiest on-ramp that we have. But we come in, and once we come in the door, we immediately start. We have a 4-phase process. It's investigate, generate, automate, and accelerate. And then in the investigate phase, we're lifting up the hood. Where are your leads coming from? What are your averages? What are your open rates in your emails? What kind of responses? How are you communicating? What channels are you communicating on? How many appointments are you running monthly? How many offers are you making sales? All the stuff that a good salesperson and sales team needs to know. And then once we start figuring those things out, then we're immediately start looking at where's the low hanging fruit, because you're doing something well. How can we step right into that and continue to do that? And then while we're optimizing, then we start looking at when we start putting the right systems in place. And the whole time we start building a sales playbook. And so inside of that sales playbook is scripts, everything we need to know about your ideal client, the prospect journey. Basically, it's a training manual. So as sales teams come in, they go right to that sales playbook and they start learning everything that they need to know about you, your client, the prospect, the offer, the opportunity, and what they need to do to be able to be on brand and inside of your culture and values and live really well. So and that's a real core important part of it, because we only put people on your campaign that are a perfect fit for your brand. They understand your client, the journey they're on. If they're a good fit for your values, that's actually the first thing we match for, because without that, it doesn't matter. If somebody sells really well, but they're not buying into your values and your culture, it's not going to last long anyway. Right. So we want to make sure we solve for all of that.
What are the price points?
Price points typically for the outsource side, we're anywhere from $25K to $100K up front, and then $5K a month standard. There's always going to be some sort of a monthly strategy and support fee, and that because we want to compare us to you building your own sales division, not you hiring a salesperson, right? Because you can obviously hire a salesperson yourself for a lot cheaper. But then you got to hire them, train them, develop them, manage them, lead them, babysit them, get metrics from them, put them together, make sure that you're, reviewing calls, doing all the things you need to do, which most founders never do. And so you end up hanging on to somebody for far too long who isn't doing what you need them to do, just because it's easier to keep them than it is to replace them, right? Or you start generating more leads than you need to, more than the team can take care of, or fewer and than the team can handle, and then they're gone, right? So whereas when you work with a company like us, we can expand and contract to fit your business design, not you trying to force feed our client, our team, right?
Jim, as Matt said, we are totally all in on this, because there's something that I hope our audience is grasping and resonates with them. It's not just pound for pound salesman versus salesman. It's all the other incidentals that you handle. And it's I'm calling in sick. It's the maternity leave. It's the FICA. It's the training. It's the turnover. That there's a tremendous burden on small business with all those variables, and they're expensive variables. So a guy that's able to put that operation in place, I got to tell you, we need to lift your hood. Who is this superhero, Jim Padilla from the Bronx?
Jim Padilla from the Bronx started out with a bit of a hard luck life. I was born to teenage parents who had no business having me, but we're pretty glad they did. And my dad took off right away, and my mom freaked out. She didn't know how to, she did the best she could with what she had, but she had no clue how to raise a kid. And I got, severely abused as a kid. And I was in foster care at 13. I was on the streets at 16, and I was in jail by 19. And I spent the first 20 years of my life every day learning how to read the room, learning how to influence people and bend their will to my direction so that I could be seen as a resource and an asset instead of as a threat. And that was how I stayed alive. Right. Learn when to speak, when not to speak, when to be invisible, when to be, massively resourceful. And, little did I know that I'd be making millions of dollars teaching other people how to do the same thing, how to read the room, influence people in their direction so that people can see you as an asset instead of as a threat. Because most of the time when they don't buy from you, it's because there's some level of discomfort that they're having. It's not because they don't want what you have. It's they're afraid of what you're selling. They're afraid of how you're approaching them. They're on guard and on defense. Your job is to disarm them, so that you're working together. And so that's what we do, in the training capacity, but that's what we have mastered in our outsourced sales capacity, because we can set up an environment where somebody can step into your brand and read the room, assimilate, be able to represent you as well as you can. And, the whole goal is to make you replaceable in the sales process so that you can actually rise above and start doing the things you need to.
So Jim, there's a 3,000-mile gap in your story. So you come out of prison. What are you doing to earn a living, and how do you end up in California?
I ended up in California when I was a kid. Quite an interesting story around that. But my mother, who was, again, young teenager, I was 4 years old, living in the projects in the Bronx, and I was ganged up on by 3 other kids older than me, and they were shoving dirt in my mouth. And that's, as the story tells, I don't remember it, but my mom tells it this way. And she went to each of the moms of these kids and said, you cannot allow your kid to do that. If I find your kid doing that on another time to my son, I'm going to do it to you. Right. And then lo and behold, similar situation happened again. They were picking on me, and my mom went to each of those parents, beat them up, threw everything we had in a car, and we left and drove as far away as possible and went to California. So she decided I was not going to be raised on the streets of New York on welfare, and time to put herself through San Jose State, working graveyard at a diner, and she's turned her own life and luck around.
God bless Mrs. Padilla.
Yeah.
So now you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
How are you earning a buck as a young Jim?
Yeah, well, I've learned, some of the best entrepreneurs that you'll ever find are, behind prison walls. These guys have learned a lot about learning how to make transactions and how to solve problems and how to build networks and distribution and everything else. They just did it in the wrong way, for the wrong reasons typically. And, I learned how do you serve people, right? How do you move the needle forward? I learned what Zig Ziglar always said: if I want to get what I want, I help you get what you want. That's just the rule of the jungle, right? That's how it works. And so I was always entrepreneurial, built business systems as a kid. I always had a leverage model, no matter what. I learned very young. I remember reading a book when I was 13 that by APG and Innie, and he said that he would rather have 1% of 100 men than 100% of one. And that just made so much sense to me. And so I thought I could get so much more by collaborating with others. And so even when I was a kid, we would go collect, aluminum cans from the neighborhood, smash them and go to Safeway. But I would have all we'd set up a system, and my buddies would be collecting the cans. They'd be smashing them and be taking them. And then I'd go and take them to Safeway, cash it in, and then dispense the money. Right. And there was always different versions of that going on. I used to sell book reports when I was in school, but I had other people writing them. So they were never in the same language, same voice. So you never got caught. Right. But it was always leveraging other people's wisdom and efforts. And so that everybody is pulling together. It's exactly what our business model is today. Right. I have some fantastic human beings who are great salespeople who know how to follow systems. I don't make the sales. When somebody hires us, I'm not making the sales for them. Our systems are with our team. And so, I had my first real business, structured business, was an alarm company. I built a team of, we had 3 offices selling ADT alarms door to door. And we had a phone room that supported them. And, we hired in masses, trained in classes, and kicked them out on their asses, as they say. And we got real good at it. And building the power of that.
Good ones I'm writing down, Jim. I got investigate, generate, automate.
Yeah.
What was the last one? Hire in masses.
Accelerate. Yeah. And then, hire in masses, train in classes, and kick them out on their asses.
I love that.
Matt, you better be taking notes. We're having a quiz in 20 minutes.
So, Jim, with that said, right, all your sales done in phone rooms? Are you hiring door-to-door teams too for people as well?
We have not. I used to. We did the model really well for a decade with the alarm teams, and then when I went into mortgage, same thing. Today it's all virtual. It's the only time we're in person doing sales is when we're doing a conference, when we're at an event, running conference sales. So we will structure people's conference, put their offer, their whole process together, and then we'll put salespeople on the ground to be able to convert people into whatever the offer is from stage. But outside of that, it's all virtual. We got salespeople all around the world, multiple different countries, and it's mostly, Zoom calls or phone calls that make it all go.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So you have salespeople all around the world, right? There tends to be an issue when you get some clients and somebody gets on the phone and they have heavy accents. I'm sure you've had customers ask you about this before. How do you handle that, and how do you sort and find the right candidates for each?
Yeah, well, what we do is whoever we're selling for, the majority of our clients, even if they're based in other countries, they're always targeting North America. They always want to get clients here. And so we focus on where the source is, or where the destination is, not where the source is. And so we had somebody who we're talking to recently who they're based in Argentina, and they had a US based company who had Spanish speakers reaching out to Argentina, and it didn't work because they didn't know the culture. They weren't from there. Right. So we sourced people who were Spanish first English second because they were more entrenched in the culture, and it can make the combination fit. So it's not so much the language as it is the culture. They really need to understand the culture to be able to have great quality conversations that are going to move the needle. And so when we have people in other countries, we have people in South Africa, Australia, the UK, Colombia, but they all speak English either as a primary, or like a lot of them went to school here. They went to school in America and then went back home. So they understand the culture because they've lived here. So even though they have an accent, they can still have a quality conversation. And so the culture is the important part, not necessarily the accent.
So once you put the sales team in place for people, does the owner of the company have access to the sales team if they need them? Do they have to go through a manager? Do they get to have one-on-one conversations with the salespeople, or is it totally 100% hands off?
It's pretty much whatever you choose it to be. The main thing is you don't manage our team, that we do, right? And so if you need to manage the team, if you want to speak directly into them and you control them then it doesn't work. You need to just build your own team, right? And run it in-house, which is great. I'm not married to either one, whatever's going to work best for you. The main advantage you have when you work with us is that every entrepreneur that we work with loves creating strategy. So they still get the best of both worlds because you get to co-create strategy, but then you get to take your hands off and let us go implement, right? So you get the best of all of that. And we want them to have relationships. So they're going to meet with the sales team at least, on a regular basis, on a once a month, because the more the sales team knows the founder, then they're more sold on the mission. And it's different to get on a call with somebody and say, yes, this product is a great fit for you or we can get on the phone with a client and say, hey, we were just talking to Matt today and man, he was so excited about this. And that's now it's just a warmth and an extension of the brand. And now it's a whole different conversation for people.
I love that. So we were talking earlier, you're doing some other things outside of the sales team stuff. So you like some passive income plays. What's your favorite passive income play these days?
Yeah. I'm a sucker for coin op car washes, right? I things that require minimal hands-on, things that have very few moving parts because they have less. If something just does one thing over and over and over, those are the things that last the longest and are least likely to break, right? And you can have stuff that lasts you 20 years in there because the mechanisms don't need to change a whole lot, right? So I like, laundromats. I like coin op car washes. I like vending machines, even though those are a little bit more, manual because you have to fill them all the time. But again, you push the button and it drops. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't shake it and stir it and blend it and whisk it. It doesn't do a bunch of things. So they last forever, right? So wherever you can get, to me, passive income is passive income to me doesn't mean the business doesn't do anything. It means you can easily put an operator in because it's a simple mechanism. So you don't need a rocket scientist to run it. You need somebody who knows how to take care of washing machines, somebody who knows how to fix the spigot when the valve doesn't work, right? Things that are very simple, low levels of complexity that you can find anywhere for a reasonable cost, right? And then on the other side where, we spend a lot of time because our gift is being able to put cash infusion into businesses by scaling them with sales teams. And of course, we have partners that provide all the marketing services and anything else we need to really scale and ramp people up. Then we take those companies who have a really strong, ambitious goal and they want to get somewhere to get to an exit. I was telling you guys about, a print company we're working with recently that, they're trying to get up to a $20 million benchmark from the 16 that they're at, because that's a trigger mark in that industry. They know that there's an exit play there. So we're pouring cash infusion into them with our knowledge and our sales teams and our expertise. And then we hit that 20 million mark. And then there's an exit that everybody gets to benefit from.
Jim, when Gain the Edge is analyzing a potential client, do you folks have an internal rule of thumb where you say, well, the business is generating 20 million in revenue, the average ticket is 10,000, they need 4 salespeople? Like, can you break your systems down so succinctly, or does it require a tremendous more analysis?
Well, there is some benchmark numbers on that, but it really it's more vertical dependent and price point dependent. Some people are selling a $2,000 solution, some people are selling a $25,000 or a $200,000 solution. So the numbers are going to really depend on the market the availability, the capacity. So they have the capacity to scale, and we know we can make that happen. Then all we're trying to do is collapse the time frames, get them from a 6-month sale to a 3-month, get them from a 90-day to a 30-day, whatever that looks like. How can we collapse the time frames and make the sale happen in a more reasonable time? The only way you make more sales is you have to make more sales of what you're already doing. You got to sell them for a higher price, and you got to sell them more often. So all we do is look at which one of those lanes, how do we apply all 3 of those, and which one's first. And so because we want to get them ROI.
Golly, Jim, when you break it down so simple, why isn't the rest of America an entrepreneur?
Because they're too busy trying to find a magic pill that prevents them from having to sell anything or market anything, because that's the stuff that nobody wants to do.
Oh, ain't that the truth? Man, you got a lot of good ones today, Jim. I'm loving it.
It's just the reality, right? It's stuff that we live in every day.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to do the hard work, right? Everything good is on the other side of hard.
Everybody, raise your hand if you want more sales, right? Everybody wants more sales. And raise your hand if you want to do the work of getting better at selling. Not many hands go up.
Yeah.
Right. And then even if you do, that should only be temporary. You want to get better at selling so you can build a system that you can then hand off to somebody else. And that's the problem that most people miss, right? Like I said, you become the dancing bear. And if it requires you as the founder, right? If you don't have a system, you are the system. And then that means you're not replicatable, which means you're not scalable, which means you will be doing this forever until you decide to stop.
Listen, I built $150 million book of business on Wall Street cold calling off D&B cards. You know what my system was? Index cards and a file dex. We didn't even have email at that point. But it's follow up and consistency, right? Is really what happens, and you actually can streamline your process if you put systems in place, right? Because I knew after the first call, I knew what the next call was. I knew what the third call was, right? Right. We had a system that we followed that way.
But Jim, I have to tell you though, a hunter always likes to hunt. Every once in a while, Matt will give me a buzz and says, "You know what? I'm getting on the phones today." I got to tell you, that's one of our biggest revenue days of the year, right? So he still got it. It's just a matter of, tapping into that energy, because dealing with people is emotionally and physiologically draining.
Yeah. Well, in the whole goal, you have to understand the journey that they're on. I mean, it's, you're not selling a product. You're, too many times people are like, well, how am I they're saying no. How do I get them to not say no? Well, they're saying no to the wrong thing. I'm not getting you to say yes or no. Do you want to buy my product? I want you to say yes or no. Do you want the outcome you said you want? When you're committed to the outcome, now it's up to you to find the right solution. I've got a solution right in front of you right here. So you're too busy trying to determine, do you want to buy this or not? When you need to be determining, do you really want the dream outcome you asked for? Do you want to stop having the problems that you said are agonizing you and keeping you awake every night?
So Jim, you're obviously a man with an abundance of energy, but you're also a grandfather. Congratulations.
Yes.
Where do we gain the edge in the future? What are the next challenges?
Well, where we're really heading with all of this, and yes, grandfather, not something I ever planned on or thought about being, but it's one of those things that once you've got them, man, it's a game changer. They're awesome. But having spent time behind bars and being a man of God, I have, I challenge guys a lot. I have a ministry called Men in Action, and my whole focus is to take guys from missing in action to putting them on purpose to become men in action. Because I think one of the biggest challenges with our culture and our society today is that the reason there's, I don't know, I'm going to get controversial here, but the reason that there's a Planned Parenthood on every corner, the reason that there's drugs in the street and homeless everywhere is because, I'll say specifically the Christian American man, but men in general, we're weak, soft pussies. We talk and don't do. We got a lot of great ideas. We share all kinds of cool stuff in couches and living rooms and at coffee shops, but we're not out there on the street making a difference. And so I'm constantly challenging guys to get out and be the man that they need to be. And it doesn't mean you have to go conquer every hill, but it's got to start in your home. You got to be the leader in your home. You got to be the man in your community, in your neighborhood. You got to be the guy that's going to make sure that, it's not about protesting and picketing outside of a Planned Parenthood as an example. It's teaching kids how to value themselves, teaching your sons how to treat themselves as men and only serve women the way that they know they deserve to be. They're not pieces of flesh. It's how to teach women how to be respectful and powerful and worthy of what God has created them to be. We start leading the right lives, then we can eliminate all these things because they're not necessary, because we have people doing the right things. And it all starts on us, guys. It's us. Look in the mirror and you're the one that's got to be the catalyst for the change in your life. And so when I challenge guys with this a lot, and one day God told me, it's like, hey, this is awesome that you're motivating guys, but what are you doing? And so I was like, oh, me. Okay. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go start serving on inside of prison ministries, and I'm a chaplain at Folsom State Prison. And I do ministries there, and I just go in and do services every Sunday. And one thing that I learned in there is that the reason that the guys get better is because they're committed to change, but they're surrounded with support. They have drug rehab, they have financial counseling, they have spiritual rehab, they have mental support facilities. And then when they get out, they got none of it. And then they fall on their face because they don't have the support network. So what we're doing is we are looking to build call centers in downtown cities where prisons are, and primarily for ex-cons and throwaway teens. We got aged out teens that get treated the same way. Nobody wants a 16-year-old, foster kid. They want 4-year-old cute kids, right? And so we want to put these guys to work, teach them how to sell, teach them how to earn money so they don't have to go out and earn it illegally, give them a purpose so they have something to fight for, give them a community of guys like them so there's no judgment. Nobody around them's going, you're an ex-con, really? Right? So you have support, and then we surround them with programming. So if you work in our call centers, you do 1 hour a day of programming. You get, we get financial accounting, you get rehab, you get spiritual support and guidance. And our whole objective is to reduce the recidivism rate. And it's, instead of 76% of men getting out, going back in, we want 76% of men getting out, staying out. So we can be contributing members of society and start really showing the world what good, godly men can create in our country.
Jim, we knew behind the mild-mannered academic classes there was a superhero. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Partner, take us home.
Jim, thanks so much for being here, man. We want to be respectful of your time. Can you tell the audience where they could find you? Because I think your phone's going to start ringing from this episode. Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The best thing to do is if you go to jimp360.com, it's JIMP360.com. That is a site where you're going to find all my social medias, videos about us, how to work with us, how to work for us, our upcoming events, which we do have coming up. And what I'm going to ask you to do is go in there, find the contact button, click on that, and shoot me a text message. Just shoot me your first name, your last name. I want to know who you are. I want to get to know how I can help you. And I'm happy to send you, some resources on putting some, what we call an anti-closer sales system in place, so that you start putting the systems in place that will help you not have to hire closers to be able to sell your stuff.
Jim, thanks so much, buddy. One question before we let you run. Describe yourself in one word for the audience.
One word: overcomer.
And that's a wrap of the Liquid Lunch Project.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.